Tonight is one of extremes in daily fantasy baseball because there's a pitcher with a salary that is very, very high who I want to use and I want to use a lot of. Our second guy is also pretty high salaried. Our third pitcher is, I believe, the lowest salaried guy on the entire slate. So we're either swimming in the deep end or we're going all the way to the bottom. And it's going to be, I think, a pretty fun one for tonight, where we have a lot of fun ways you can play things, different roster construction you could go with. We're going to break it down, let you know which players I'm focusing on, which guys on the extremes I'm talking about, and get you ready for Tuesday night in MLB DFS. Welcome on into the solo shop. That's right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network and NumberFire.com. My name is Jim Sannes. I am a senior writer and analyst for NumberFire, here to break down Tuesday's 10-game main slate with lock set for 7:05 p.m. Eastern for today. Weather notes for this slate: there is a slight chance of rain in Minneapolis. For the Twins and Padres, they should be able to play, but we're checking back on later for that. And then some mild weather in Wrigley today for the Cubs and the Cardinals. Same as last night, where it is chilly, not quite as windy this time, with the winds in at just 5 miles per hour versus around 9 miles per hour last night. So downgrade bats there, just not quite as drastically as you would have for last night. We'll dive in and break down the pitching options, the fun way to play the slate, and the stacks, and much more. But first, a reminder to make sure you're subscribed to the NumberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed wherever you get your podcasts. Later on today, Brandon Gadula and I breaking down this week's PGA Tour event, the AT&T Byron Nelson, letting you know our top golfers in each salary tier, roster construction, and much more to get you ready for this week's event. To get that in all of our podcasts as they go live, just search for the NumberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed wherever you get your podcasts. Hit subscribe, and if you like what you hear, leave us a 5-star rating. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and you can get in on the action right from first tip with FanDuel. Right now, all customers can get a no-sweat same-game parlay every weekend when you bet the NBA playoffs. That's right. Just place a 3+ leg same-game parlay or same-game parlay plus on any NBA playoff game. You'll get bonus bets back if you don't win. There's no better place to bet all the playoff action than America's #1 sportsbook. Head to the FanDuel app and get a no-sweat same-game parlay every weekend of the NBA playoffs. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Must be 21 plus and present in select states. FanDuel is offering online sports wagering in Kansas under an agreement with Kansas Star Casino LLC. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. And Massachusetts Hope is here. GamblingHelplineMA.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support. In New York, 1-877-8-HOPE-AND-Y or text HOPE-AND-Y. In Arizona, 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT-STEP to 53342. In Connecticut, 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat. In Indiana, 1-800-9-WITH-IT. In Wyoming and Kansas, 1-800-522-4700. We're in Kansas, ksgamblinghelp.com. Louisiana is 1-877-770-STOP. In Maryland, mdgamblinghelp.org. And in West Virginia, go to 1-800-GAMBLER.net. Pitching preview for this Tuesday main slate: Shohei Ohtani comes in with a salary of $11,600. Framber Valdez is at 10.8. We got Logan Webb coming in at 10.5, followed by George Kirby at 99. Charlie Morton is at home at $9,700. Jesus Luzardo is 95. Lucas Giolito 93, with Louis Varland, Nick Pivetta, Eric Lauer, Clark Schmidt, Andrew Heaney, and Jack Flaherty as the others at $8,000 or higher. Now, based on that list, you probably could guess who the high salary guy is. And that's going to be Shohei Ohtani. He's facing the Astros tonight. We could have had reservations in the past about that. Honestly, with Ohtani, I might have still done it, but I'm not going to have those right now. Ohtani is the top guy on this slate. We knew the Astros would struggle a bit coming into this year while they waited to get healthier, but it's just so little power. And it's kind of shocking how rough they've been in that department this year. They have an 82 WRC plus against righties with a 116 ISO. They are doing nothing there. But they also have about a league average strikeout rate. So in every key category, they are right now a plus matchup, or at least a neutral matchup for righties for the time being. And it's not as if Ohtani needs that because he faced a much tougher Cardinals team last time now, and he did let up some runs in that game, but also 13 strikeouts. We're up to 13 starts now on Ohtani, leaning more heavily on his slider or his cutter, depending on which he feels that night. In that 13 start sample, he has a 35% strikeout rate. That is the best number on the slate by 7 percentage points in each guy's most relevant sample. Ohtani is walking a couple too many guys, but no real hard contact issues. And honestly, if he were having hard contact issues here, would it matter that much against the Astros? I think we have the full green light here to go high on Ohtani. So once again, Shohei Ohtani is the top guy of the night. I do think there is a safe, decently high upside alternative in the upper range as well. So let's talk about him now, then we'll get to the value play. It's an alternative with a good floor. I think he has a path to a ceiling, and that's Logan Webb. I like him plenty here at 10-5 if you want to pivot away from Ohtani. Webb is at home facing the Nationals, and they are one of the few teams in baseball with less power than the Astros. Their ISO against righties on the current active roster this year is 0.99 with a 76 WRC plus. The one downside is that they don't strike out. They have a 20% strikeout rate versus righties, which is 4 percentage points lower than the Astros that Ohtani gets. And Webb himself, not as big of a strikeout guy as Ohtani. He has been getting more this year than he was last year. He has a 27% strikeout rate across 7 starts, which is up from 21% last year. Weirdly, he's been doing that while throwing more sinkers and fewer sliders. Usually, that combination leads to fewer strikeouts. So this might not stick, and his swinging strike rate is almost identical to last year. But even if the strikeouts do fall, Webb is a very good real-world pitcher. And that's why the floor is so high here. And he can access that ceiling if the strikeouts come, which they may. So Webb is not purely just a pivot off of Ohtani. I think that he is also one who is viable in general. I would prefer Ohtani 10 times out of 10, but Webb is at least solid on his own merit as well. So Ohtani is a high salary guy. I mentioned earlier there is a lower salary guy I feel good about. And typically, if you're a regular listener, you know I don't tend to go towards the super low value plays because values are values for a reason. And I need points. But I think we get an exception for tonight in Brandon Pfaadt. Pfaadt's salary is $5,800, and I'm willing to give him a run here today. Pfaadt made his debut last week, and it didn't go very well. He let up 7 earned runs in 4 2/3 innings. He let up 4 home runs in that game. That game against Texas, they were a good team, a good offense with a lot of power, but they're not a juggernaut offensively. So that's a concern to see Pfaadt struggle so much there. But his numbers in AAA were really nice. He made 10 starts there last year and 5 this year. His swing and strike rates were 16.7% and 14.4% respectively. Didn't walk many guys, and he converted those swinging strikes into strikeouts. It is possible Pfaadt was letting up a lot of hard contact down there. Based on his first start in the majors, that would be the big issue here. But the strikeouts were there. The power issue, the issue with hard contact, is less concerning in this specific matchup. He's facing the Marlins, who have an 83 WRC plus against righties, a 30% fly ball rate, an above average strikeout rate too. So it might be dumb, given how bad that first start went. It's possible Pfaadt is just not ready yet, but his salary is $5,800. You can use any hitter you want if you go 58. So as you know, this is not my typical approach, but I think for tonight, Pfaadt actually does have upside. We're not sacrificing that by going down low. We can get access to high upside batters by using him. So I think tonight is a good time to have some fun. Check out Brandon Pfaadt, see how it goes. And if it doesn't go well, we're on to the next slate, but I think it's at least worth a sniff when you're not going Ohtani for tonight. So, top pitching options for today, Shohei Ohtani, Logan Webb as a pivot in the top range, and then Brandon Pfaadt as the lower salary guy who actually does have some viability for today. Let's go now to the stacks and talk about what's attractive there. And part of the reason why Pfaadt to me stands out is I actually don't mind some high salaried batters for tonight, specifically on the Dodgers. And I think they are the top stack here. The Dodgers have not lit up lefties so far this year. They have just a 93 WRC plus. So it's not been their forte by any means. I think they could improve that tonight. And I like them quite a bit as a stack. They're facing Eric Lauer, and we've talked quite a bit about Lauer this year. He's throwing a lot of cutters, and his velocity is down. He's still gotten strikeouts, which is good, but his contact profile is pretty rough. Across 6 starts, Lauer's let up a 45% hard hit rate with a 46% fly ball rate. His 4.40 ERA is fine, but his expected ERA is 5.87. I think there is implosion potential in those batted ball numbers. Even the Tigers touched up Lauer for 4 runs in Milwaukee, which is where this game is tonight. So the Dodgers have not done great against lefties yet, but I think they could here. So it's a good stack for upside. We can probably get to them tonight. Maybe not with Ohtani, but I still think the Dodgers worth consideration, especially if you have Webb or Fott as your top pitcher. They've been pretty aggressive with batting Chris Taylor high in the order against lefties, and past couple of games versus lefties, Taylor's hit 5th and 4th, and he doesn't tend to leave early for pinch hitters. He hits lefties really well still. I think Taylor has a lot of upside. So $3,000 for him, very fair number. Think that makes a lot of sense. And Chris Taylor, one of the more reasonably salaried Dodgers. So if you can't get to the Dodgers stack with Ohtani, I wouldn't mind tossing in Taylor as a one-off to get some upside and exposure to this offense. Patrick Corbin facing the Giants tonight, and he threw a gem last time out. He held the Cubs to just 2 runs across 7 innings. He had 6 strikeouts and no walks. And he has been getting better of late. So this is good. This is fun to see because Corbin has had a rough go. You don't want to see that happen forever. I still think we want to stack the Giants against him tonight, despite that good start last week. Looking at Corbin's pitches in that game, his pitch mix and his velocity were pretty similar to before. He did get more whiffs, which is a positive for him, but the batted ball data was still rough. Of the 18 balls in play Corbin allowed there, 10 of them were hard hits. So that part of the issue for Corbin is not cured. He's letting up a 46% hard hit rate so far this year. The Giants definitely not flawless against lefties where they strike out a ton. And that, plus what Corbin did last week, means this stack is not a lock, but no stacks are locks. Locks do not exist in sports betting in general or daily fantasy in general. So locks don't exist. But this Giants offense has some lefty bangers. The larger sample on Corbin is not great. So I will go here, even with some legitimate concerns. Given how well Corbin pitched last week, given the Giants do strike out a lot, I still think they're worth a look for tonight. I do think Wilmer Flores is viable here within these stacks, even with some pinch hit risk. He's left for a pinch hitter twice this year, and both were in the 8th inning. Both of them were recent, which is noteworthy, but they also came after he'd had 4 plate appearances already before leaving that game. So it is a risk, especially with some of their guys being back now, but I still think it's worth it for Flores. He hits lefties well. He's not devoid of risk, but it comes with some upside for sure, where you're not just getting maybe a solo home run. I think there is some potential for more on top of that. So Flores, to me, a quality option for tonight within the Giants stacks. Finally, I talked last night about how hard it is mentally to stack the Yankees because they just lack juice right now. That's still the case, but as we saw last night, the A's bullpen is a nightmare. And with the A's still in town, I think we want to go to the Yankees once again. They're facing Drew Rucinski this time. He's been pitching in Acadia the past couple of years and just 2 starts back in the big leagues for Rucinski and hasn't been great yet. He has more walks and strikeouts. He's gotten some ground balls, but not a ton. And that's about it. Also, not as many ground balls as I thought he'd get when he came back here to the States. And it hasn't helped him that much because in the 2 starts, Rucinski has a 7.71 ERA. His skill interactive ERA is 6.62 with a 6.92 expected ERA. Now, he will get a boost tonight facing the Yankees. That's not a terrifying lineup by any means, but I don't think that boost he'll get will be enough to negate the issues he's had. And again, even if he is good, we can still get points against that bullpen, which is what happened last night, where JP Sears pitched well. The bullpen did not and still allowed the Yankee stacks to come through. So even in their hyper depleted state, I still think we should stack the Yankees again tonight against Rucinski and the A's bullpen. We just have to make sure we're doing so with guys with upside, and that's not super easy right now. I think one out is using guys with speed. So Anthony Volpe, Gleyber Torres, they both steal bases. Torres can go deep against righties too. Anthony Rizzo at least puts the ball in the air against righties. You know, hasn't been the most powerful guy so far this year, but does put it in the air. Then if Jake Bauers plays, he was at least playing great in AAA. His underlying numbers in the majors so far in a small sample are pretty good. So it's not inspiring, but it's enough for us to be okay with it. Willie Calhoun, too, a lower salary guy, but you don't feel great about stacking the Yankees, but I still think it's at least worthwhile given how bad, how wretched, how hideous that A's bullpen is at the moment. Things to watch for tonight. I could see the weather in Chicago pushing you toward Jameson Taillon, especially because it is lower temperature, very low total. Taillon is favored in this game. I'd be wary of pitch count, though. He went 42 pitches last week, and that was his first start off the IL. He came back in kind of a rush because they didn't have anybody to start. So he came back with no rehab start, which to me says he's building back up still. I had Taillon projected for 60 pitches tonight, and he may exceed that, but I don't think it's enough to justify using this. Taillon, a guy who will not be on my radar for DFS for tonight. The White Sox are pretty similar to the Yankees, where they have a great situation. I just don't really want to stack them right now. They're facing Jordan Lyles, who's really struggling with fly balls at the moment, getting minimal strikeouts. So within White Sox, actually to be a bit selective, but they're a fine spot to go for one-offs and such, given their matchup here with Lyles and the Royals. Finally, I've talked about stacking against Nick Pivetta earlier on this year, and he has improved. He's been using more curveballs recently. It's helped cut back on the hard contact a bit, but it's still 44% hard hit rates across his 4 starts with more curveballs. He's facing the Braves tonight, who have a lot of power. I think they'd be a pretty decent stack. So I rank the Braves behind the top 3 at least. So behind the Dodgers, behind the Giants, behind the Yankees. I think they're in the same tier as the White Sox for very different reasons, where we're wary about them with the matchup, wary about the White Sox due to quality hitting. So kind of whichever way you want to play that there, both those teams a consideration behind our top 3. Let's finish up here with the Dinger calls for this Dinger Tuesday over at FanDuel Sportsbook. The boring home run call, got to go Mookie Betts facing off with a guy, letting up a lot of fly balls, a lot of hard contact. Mookie, since coming back, has been hitting the ball pretty well. I don't mind Will Smith here either in terms of his outlook in this game. So I'm going to go Mookie. Whenever I pick Will Smith, he tends to stick. He's a catcher, but we'll go Mookie Betts as the first home run call for today. His odds at FanDuel Sportsbook plus 350. They're not super long by any means. Chris Taylor's plus 520. Maybe that's more fun. But Mookie Betts, the official fun home run call for today. Or for the more boring one, I should say. For the fun one, let's go Wilmer Flores. Again, facing off with the lefty and Patrick Corbin, who lets up a lot of fly balls and a lot of hard contact. Flores does tend to stay in for the entire game. He's plus 520 at FanDuel Sportsbook. JD Davis is plus 560. We talked about him last night. I think both those guys make a lot of sense. So got a couple options here between Mookie Betts and Chris Taylor if you want to go a bit longer there, and then Wilmer Flores or JD Davis within the Giants for tonight. That's all we got here for this Tuesday slate of MLB DFS. Again, as I mentioned, we are back later on today breaking down some PGA DFS for the AT&T Byron Nelson. Get that in the Number Fire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed, wherever you get your podcasts. Hit subscribe, and if you like what you hear, leave us a 5-star rating as well. If you've got any questions for me, I am on Twitter at Jim Sannes, JimSannes, back with you once again tomorrow to break down Wednesday's slate. We'll talk to you all then. Good luck tonight. This has been the Solo Shot right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network.